Express Nation, it is week 8, and I am so locked in because after what happened last night with Minnesota locking down Nebraska defensively, and then UNC losing off of a last-minute field goal to Cal 21-18, and then Louisville going on the road and knocking off number 2 Miami and exposing Carson Beck as the quarterback at which I thought he was. So week 8 has started off with a lot of fireworks. First thing off, I got a lot of things going down. I got a birthday to celebrate. So I'm going to have a very short podcast today. But let's go ahead and talk about week 8 as a whole, because we got a lot of football lined up for today. And starting us off at 12 o'clock, I think this is probably one of the most slam-packed 12 o'clock slates we've had so far this season. And when you look at all the games, you got Washington versus Michigan, a Michigan team that's kind of fallen off the cliff, and a Washington team that a lot of folks have under the radar. I think a lot of people are saying that they should be respected more. And then you got Arizona versus Houston, a Houston team that was pretty dominant early on until they faced Texas Tech, and then an Arizona team that has some miscues here and there, but one's 4-2, one's 5-1, so this win could really turn their team into a positive direction. And then you look, TCU versus Baylor, 2 powerhouses out of Texas, 2 powerhouses out of the Big 12. A Baylor team that has some close losses, but they've had some dramatic wins. A TCU team that was pretty dominant early on, but then they've fallen short over the last 2 weeks. So for this game, same with the Houston, Arizona, this is kind of a proven state game for them. And this could really flip either way. These games at 12 o'clock can really flip either way. Now, personally for me, I am taking Washington over Michigan. You can go check that out on all my socials. I threw that graphic up there. You can see I'm riding with Washington. But then you start looking at the ranked matchups at 12 o'clock. You got Oklahoma number 14 versus South Carolina. They're going on the road to South Carolina. This is a game that it could very trap them up because of how underperforming and underwhelming they have been offensively. South Carolina defense is no joke. Now, if South Carolina can't generate any offense like they did against LSU, then obviously Oklahoma should win this game. But a South Carolina defense, pair that up with a pretty decent offense, they're going to give Oklahoma a run for their money. And something we've seen once teams start losing this season, they start falling off a cliff. Now, there's exceptions to that rule, but once a team loses once, they just start cycling down, and they're not like they were during their undefeated run. But the 2 matchups at 12 o'clock that I'm going to highlight, these are the most important matchups, will be Georgia Tech going on the road to Duke. Georgia Tech is an underdog in this game. -3.5 is something I personally didn't expect, being that Georgia Tech has been so dominant outside of that Wake Forest game. And I think that Wake Forest game was kind of a wake-up call for Georgia Tech because they are the hunted. They're no longer doing the hunting. And I think that was a wake-up game. You've seen that in the next week when they played. For me personally, I do think Duke will give them a little run for their money. Duke does have a phenomenal quarterback. And I think with another year, next year, he might even be in the Heisman contender. But for this year, I've been riding with Tech since last year. I'm going to ride with Tech for the rest of the year. And then you look at LSU versus Vandy, a game it's a 50-50 game for me. This is a game I want to go with LSU because of their overwhelming roster and overwhelming defense. But then at the end of the day, I don't want to go against Vandy. I mean, when you look at Vandy, they can generate offense. They don't have a terrible defense, and LSU is the very opposite. They have a good defense, but they can't generate offense. Plus, it's a home game for Vandy. So everything's kind of circling in a positive note for Vandy to win this game, but it's LSU at the end of the day. It is a team that when it comes down to it, outside of that Ole Miss game, they're going to crank out a win. They're going to buckle down, and they're going to figure out how to win the ball game. They've done it so far this season when their offense has underperformed. Defense has stepped up, made the plays necessary, even scored at times to allow LSU to win the game. So this is a 50-50 game. I'm not going to pick anybody on this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Vandy did win, and I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if LSU won. So that's 12 o'clock. There's a couple other games we could talk about, but we're going to go ahead and ride down into the 3:30 slot. Starting off with Indiana, they are at home against Michigan State. This is a game. Michigan State can score points. I said this on social. If Indiana allows their ego to get to them, it's going to be very dangerous. They're going to be beat. But as long as they keep their ego out of the clouds, they play their style of ball, their defense stays honed in, then Michigan State's not going to be any problem for them. Number 4, A&M, we've done seen upset. This is another game that circles upset. It screams it because of how iffy Arkansas is, Coin phrase that me and my friends got for them and a couple other my peers got is Arkansas is a team that can either play like the best team in the country one week, but then turn around and play like the worst team in the country the next. They're never consistent. They're either really hot, they're really cold. And for A&M, they need to face them when they're really cold. Because A&M's had 2 weeks, and really 2 different games this year, in which they struggled really early on, couldn't get that juice moving, and then finally found out a way to crank it out late. And Arkansas team's not like Florida, where you can struggle early on, and that offense not going to score. Arkansas's offense is extremely dangerous. You allow Taylor Green to get his wheels turning, allow Taylor Green to start controlling that offense for Arkansas. A&M's going to have a long day, especially being a home game for Arkansas. So as long as A&M locks in early, they shouldn't have too much trouble in this game. But don't be surprised if Arkansas overperforms everyone's expectations. You got SMU versus Clemson. In a game that I think SMU very much needs a win in a game that I'm not going to shy away from calling SMU over Clemson. Now, Clemson has kind of turned themselves around as of late, especially if you watch that UNC game. But when you look at who they faced up to this point, it hasn't really been no competition. I mean, after that, they lost to LSU, and Georgia Tech was probably the 2 toughest teams they faced this entire season. Beating North Carolina that way should have been the outcome of the game because you have the better team. You have the deeper roster. You have the more experienced team. You should have won the game the way you did. So for me, I like how SMU is turning the corner ever since that Baylor loss. I also see what Clemson's doing turning the corner. But I'm going to ride with SMU. I've been with SMU all season long. So it's going to be SMU over Clemson for me personally. And then you got Ole Miss, Georgia, which we'll break that a little bit more. And then you come down to your 7:30 slot. You got UVA at home against Washington State, a Washington State team that almost crept up on Ole Miss. Not saying it is possible for UVA, but they have a tendency to play extremely close games. So don't be surprised if this is not a 17.5-point game. Like, keep in mind, this might just be a 10-point ball game. Penn State versus Iowa. This is a game. In a game which I'm going to go ahead and circle Iowa. I see Penn State falling off a cliff. I'm going to continue to roll with the fall off the cliff and roll with Iowa. And then you got Maryland versus UCLA. A game in which UCLA is actually favored, and I can understand why they're favored. But when it comes to Maryland, I think they just have a complete roster. I'm not going to go here and sit here and say, oh, UCLA should win this game because of the momentum that they have into this season, or so far after that Penn State win. But if they do win this game, I won't be surprised. Their offensive coordinator is legit. The team is legit. When they had the opportunity to jump into the transfer portal, all those players stayed. So I would not be surprised if UCLA pulled out the win. But Maryland, they're also a pretty physical team. They got a young quarterback that knows how to lead his offense. And, for a freshman quarterback to lead his offense in the way Washington does is very commendable. And I wouldn't overlook Maryland's opportunity to win this game. But you can't just outshine UCLA's offensive momentum and what they have generated since that Penn State win. Then you got Missouri going on the road to face Auburn, an Auburn team that has a tendency to play you extremely close. They play Oklahoma close, A&M close, Georgia close. This game right here could be the very game that Hugh Freeze needs to keep his job. But with Missouri, I think they're going to be looking for a turnaround. They're going to be looking to get back in the win column after losing a close game at home to Alabama. And then we got Utah versus BYU. A number 23 Utah team going on the road to number 15 BYU in the Holy War. This game is going to be electric. 3.5 point game favorite for Utah. And if BYU comes into this game like they did against Arizona, I'm just going to clench my teeth because Utah is not a team to play around with. You have to do them down early. If not, this is going to be a long day for BYU. Personally, I do think Utah will be able to get the edge over BYU. But now we got all the games covered. I've been talking fast. If I miss anything, rewind it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this episode done. But let's go ahead and go into our game day picks. For me personally, choosing the game day's picks were extremely hard because I always try to include an upset game. But there's really no upset game that I'm looking at, to me personally. So starting off the list, we got Alabama at home against number 11 Tennessee. I stated this on my socials that Alabama has turned out week in and week out on improving every facet of the ball game since losing to FSU. A Tennessee team, and they're going to face a Tennessee team that's very hot on offense. But I think those DBs for Alabama all are legit. I think that DB unit is probably the best in the SEC. They have a bunch of guys that are really starting to find their place, especially with number 5, true freshman, and then number 18. The way number 18 is being able to play is he is a ball hawk. He knows how to find the ball. So for Alabama, the DB is legit. Tennessee, they have phenomenal receivers, but if they can figure out how to slow that offense down early and make them play their style of ball, I don't see why Alabama's going to lose this game. So that, and then it hurts me to say that as a Georgia fan. I ride with Georgia. I don't like seeing Alabama win, but I'll have to go with Alabama in this one. Follow that up with another night slate game. You got USC on the road to number 13 Notre Dame, in a game which this is going to be the best offense Notre Dame has played since Miami, since A&M. After they played those two teams, they haven't really played an offense of this caliber. But USC hasn't played a team to this caliber. I think the best team they can say they've played so far is Illinois, and that was a shootout. And what Notre Dame brings on offense, this definitely can turn out to be another shootout game for USC. And honestly, they don't need that because what they have at offense for Notre Dame is very explosive. They start letting Jeremiah Love and Price to kind of get those wheels turning, then it's going to be a long day for USC. And personally, I have Notre Dame winning this game just because of what they bring offensively, and I believe in C.J. Carr. Now, for my game day pick, this is a game that as a Georgia fan, we need a redemption from last year. We have number 5, Ole Miss, coming on the road, coming to Georgia's home, coming to our house to face number 9, UGA, the Dogs, the best team in the country. Just playing. We're not the best team in the country. Let me chill out. But no, we got number 5, Ole Miss, coming to our house. And for Georgia, this is a game that I've said this when it comes to playing Georgia. If I'm the opposing team, I'm spreading our linebackers out. I'm making our corners step up in the run game. I'm going to make the safeties creep up because once they start creeping, I can then start attacking. Or go ahead and just deep maul it. Make those safeties work. Make those corners cover because that's our weakest point. Our corners, our DBs, as a whole, are terrible. I mean, that's what got us be against Tennessee. That's how Alabama was able to chalk us up because our corners couldn't cover in the screen game. They couldn't cover Bernard. They couldn't cover Isaiah. They were leaving holes in the zone. Auburn, I don't know why they shied away from it, but early on you could see what they were doing with Singleton spreading us out wide, and then Cam Coleman beating us on one-on-ones. I don't understand why they went away from that facet of the game, But if you watch all our SEC games up to this point, that's how they've beaten us. They spread out our linebackers, and they attack the hell out of our corners. And it's shown to be a winning formula. I don't know why teams decide to, we're going to change it up after half. No, stick to what's right. So, and it's crazy for me to say that as a Georgia fan, telling them to stick to what's right. But if they do that, Georgia very well could have 2 more losses on their season. For Georgia, on the other hand, this is a game we've seen with Ole Miss. Trinidad Shambles is starting to come down. His high horse during the Arkansas game is starting to look like his best performance. More tape is being found on him. Teams are starting to figure out how to hone down on his abilities. So Georgia needs to take this. Their defense needs to take that next step. Just be able to figure out a way to disrupt the quarterback, something we haven't done a whole lot up to this point. Disrupt Trinidad. Make him uncomfortable in the pocket. Offensively, run the ball. Let me keep my language in check. Run the ball, okay? If you run the ball, give it to your running back. Spread the game. Don't run inside lanes. Spread the running game. Make them go outside to outside. Attack the inside. Utilize your running backs in the best way possible, because if Chancey is available for this game, give him the rock. He's the best running back in our backfield. Utilize Branch. Quit all these screens. Utilize our speed that we have at receiver. Utilize our 6'5" receiver in Noah Thomas. Utilize Colby Young's athletic ability that he has at receiver. I mean, I don't understand what Mike Bobo is doing at OC. Like, a grade schooler can coach a better OC game than Mike Bobo. So, I don't understand it, but at the end of the day, as a Georgia fan, I'm not riding against Georgia. So to recap my game day picks, I got Georgia over Ole Miss, I got Notre Dame over USC, and then I got Bama over Tennessee. Like always, I hope we have a wonderful college football. Hope everyone goes to my socials, like, subscribe if you want to continuously listen to this content. And like always, let's enjoy some Saturday football.